the bottom of our diagram. We're going to be using arrow elimination to give us the sentence, our conclusion, A. That's the last step. And now, as we did before, we need to work backwards. We need to figure out, okay, how does this last step here, how does it connect to these premises that we were given in the beginning? So we're going to work backwards, step by step, thinking about how each rule works. So we start with this rule we've already identified. We ask ourselves, okay, so we want to eventually carry out arrow elimination to give us A. What sentences do we require in order to carry this out? Well, arrow elimination requires 2 sentences. Okay, there's 2 things we need to input here in order to get A as a result. First sentence that we need on a line by itself, we're going to need the conditional that A is embedded in. We're going to need the conditional where A is the consequent. And that, as we kind of looked ahead to before, that's going to be this conditional here, B arrow A. Okay. So we're going to need B arrow A. And then the second sentence that we need in order to use arrow elimination is we need the antecedent of this conditional on line by itself. So B arrow A together with just the sentence B, we'll be able to take those 2 sentences together with arrow elimination and it'll give us A, right? Because essentially what this is saying is if B then A, B is true, so then therefore A must be true. So now we figured out how we're going to take care of A, moving up a step, right? Remember, we're trying to get back up here. So moving up a step, let's look at this sentence on the right first. So B. Do we have B already on a line by itself? Yes, we do, right? B is over here. It is, in fact, our second premise. That's pretty convenient. It was already given to us. So we can check that off. Yes, hooray, we've got B already, and B is in fact line number 2. Now, what about this over here, B arrow A? Do we have that on a line by itself already? No, we don't. Okay, well, do we see it embedded anywhere in our premises? Yes, we do. Okay, this is one of the conditionals, sorry, didn't mean to do that. This is one of the conditionals that is embedded in our first premise, right? Like we had over here, we had our little discussion about how double arrow elimination works, how these 2 conditionals here are in fact embedded in this biconditional, right? And we said we were going to choose this one, looking ahead. So we know that B arrow A is one of the conditional sentences hidden inside of A double arrow B. And what rule allows us to break conditionals out of biconditionals? Well, it is the rule double arrow elimination. Double arrow elimination requires 1 sentence in order for it to work. In order for us to use double arrow elimination to get B arrow A on a line by itself, we just are going to need to use the biconditional that it's embedded in. So we're going to need the sentence A double arrow B that we've got up here. Okay. So we figured out how we're going to get B arrow A on a line by itself. Now we move up a step. We look at this sentence here at the top, A double arrow B. Do we have this on a line by itself? Yes, we do, right? We just said that. We've got A double arrow B on a line by itself, and that is in fact line 1. So what we've done here is we started at the bottom with our conclusion. We identified the very last rule we were going to use to get our conclusion on a line by itself, and we worked upwards to connect this with our premises. You'll see the tops of these branches here are the 2 premises that we were given at the beginning. So we connected the conclusion, working backwards with the premises. So now, when we want to go over and write out the actual proof, you just start at the top and work down. And just format it correctly. You're basically just writing out what you've already got down in your proof map here. So, sorry, I keep knocking camera here. All right, so line number 3. Well, we've already got this here, right? We've already got this here. So the next thing we would need to do is this, right, before we get to the bottom. So line number 3, we've got A, double arrow B. We're going to use double arrow elimination. We're going to use double arrow elimination together with line number 1, A, double arrow B. And that's going to give us the conditional if B, then A. And of course, you don't want to forget your assumption set. All right, so here we used line 1, go up to line 1, and we see that line 1 was itself an assumption. So 1 goes in our assumption set. So now we can go back over to our map. Okay, and we see that, oh, awesome. Now we have B, arrow A on a line by itself, and that is on line number 3. Okay. So now, looking at our diagram, we've got these 2 sentences here that we need in order to move down to our conclusion. So using line number 3 and using line number 2, we're going to input those into an arrow elimination, and out we're going to get A. So let's take a look at that. Line number 4, we're using arrow elimination. The 2 sentences that are going into that arrow elimination are the sentence on line number 3 and the sentence on line number 2. So we're using 2 and 3. And what are we getting out of it? Well, these 2 sentences together with the rule are giving us A, right? We're breaking A out of this conditional here. And now, of course, you don't want to forget your assumption set. So we look over here at the 2 lines we used. Okay, we use line number 2. You go up to line number 2. Line number 2 is itself an assumption, right? So 2 goes in your assumption set. We also use line number 3 here. So you go up to line number 3, and you see that line number 3 was based on assumption number 1. So assumption 1 is also going to go in this assumption set. Alright, so now we got to the bottom of our diagram. Hooray, we've got this. It's on line number 4. So it looks like we're all done. And you want to double check your work here. You want to ask yourself, do I have the final conclusion? Did I get to the actual conclusion of the argument I started with? And the answer is yes, right? I wanted to get therefore A, and I got therefore A here. Second thing you want to check is that your conclusion is based on the correct assumption set, right? You want your conclusion to be based on the premises you were originally given. So we started out with our first assumption here, our first premise, and our second premise here, our second basic assumption. And that is in fact what our conclusion is based on here, right? It's based on only the premises we started out with and all of the premises we started out with. So we are, in fact, done with this proof. So just keep in mind, when you see biconditionals, when you're trying to break stuff out of biconditionals, keep in mind that it's usually going to be a 2-step process. It's going to be using double arrow elimination to give you a conditional, and then perhaps if you need to break out something from that conditional, you're going to need to use arrow elimination.